Hey everyone, how's it going today? And welcome back to another fourth stimulus check unemployment benefits extension update. So there are actually potential big changes that could potentially be coming when it comes to Biden's American Families Plan, specifically about life and about how things are going to potentially be impacting. And it really has to do with a lot of the tax policies that could potentially come. Now, this is the part that's actually very, very particularly likely to happen inside of the fourth stimulus package. As most of you guys know, is that in yesterday's video, which I'll also put at the end screen if you guys haven't checked it out, we talked all about a lot of the final official details that we, at least currently that we have so far, that's inside of Biden's fourth stimulus package / American Families Plan. We talk all about the big picture, like all of the basically the big important programs, including about the status with stimulus checks and what he basically said inside of his speech. I know that there's a lot of people though that have been kind of wondering about the fact that with so many different programs that have been going on, I guess the first question becomes how we're actually supposed to physically pay for a lot of these programs, a little bit about the tax side, and also a little bit about the stock market. So today's video, I really just want to talk about some of the big changes that could potentially be happening when it comes to things such as like taxes, certain policies. This is definitely particularly important if you are someone that follows the stock market, especially even more true because a lot of people's retirement accounts happens to be linked to the stock market at the end of the day, or if you're just honestly interested in hearing about it, and also about ways that this could even potentially impact your daily life, because he's hoping to really increase the taxes, and there are certain changes that can potentially just impact, but it's going to make a lot more sense. So we're going to start right away on the spot, but as always, if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, consider smashing the like button, subscribing for similar videos like this. I'll put the video to part 1 where I talk all about the details at the very end screen, and as always, feel free to comment any questions, thoughts about honestly just really anything at all. So with that being said, let's just get this video started right on the spot. So when it comes to a lot of the tax policies that I know a lot of people kind of wanted me to cover, President Biden is pretty much hoping to try to increase the taxes, specifically for the income taxes, up to 39.6% for anyone that's in basically the highest tax bracket. If for any perspective, right now at this current time, the highest tax bracket I believe pays about 37% in taxes, so he's going to really increase it by about 2%. Now you might not necessarily think that's a lot, but the thing is that this is specifically going to be applying to anyone that's making, I believe the income threshold that it's going to really start at is if you're making somewhere around $500,000 or more, this is where it could potentially apply to. He's hoping to raise up those taxes by about 2%, 2.6%. But the big thing is that if you are someone that's making $1 million, that extra 2%, we're talking about a potential like $20,000. So the fact of the matter is that $20,000 is what a lot of people have been hustling. Actually, if anything, people have been hustling for $2,000, if anything, just over stimulus check payments over the last several months. So through this program, he's going to potentially increase taxes for anyone that's in one of the highest tax brackets by about 2 to 3%, which when we're talking about like $1 million is quite a lot of money. But probably the true biggest changes that he's really hoping to try to do is to increase the capital gains tax. So the difference between this, as I guess just a quick explanation, is that income taxes is like what you guys would probably think, you know, it's the tax everyone pays when we make money. Capital gains taxes is pretty much the taxes we pay in the stock market. So when we basically make money selling or buying stocks. Right now, at this current time, most people pay about 20% when they sell their stocks. What he's hoping to potentially do now is to raise it so that a lot of the taxes that people make in the stock market is now going to be similar to the income taxes. So in other words, he's hoping to raise the taxes in the stock market from about 20% to about 40%. So this now is going to be one of the biggest massive changes that's going to potentially come from this fourth stimulus package, but specifically about this plan that he's hoping to implement. Because if you're raising this up by 20%, especially because most rich people, they keep most of their wealth in a lot of assets. So it's not necessarily actually held in cash. Most of the rich people, like the billionaires that we're all talking about, the majority of the wealth that they have, it's all included or put into things such as like the stock market, real estate, housing, all sorts of different assets, or just basically things that can make them even richer, which is probably the reason why you probably have heard the story about how the rich get richer, and kind of the cycle continues on and on. So the general great news is that if you happen to be someone that's actually in one of the lower tax brackets, especially because I do know that most people that follow stimulus and unemployment videos are probably people that are kind of going through some kind of difficulty when it comes to financial situations. So I always just say to maybe just try to stay strong, because there are so many people in those similar shoes right now. But the general idea is that the great news is that if you are not in one of those higher tax brackets, because keep in mind that probably only applies to the 1%, the great news is that there should be almost no changes when it comes to your income taxes. Now, if you happen to be in the stock market, though, is that there will be potential changes into it, because they could potentially be raising taxes to anyone that's invested in the stock market, and also because a lot of people that also follow financial-based channels and videos are in some ways, invested or just have hopefully some kind of interest into the stock market. Now, in terms of how this is going to impact a lot of us, so the really great news is that if they manage to increase a lot of the taxes for a lot of like the rich individuals, because keep in mind, this really only applies for like the top 5%. Like we're talking about like the Elon Musk, Bezos, like that billionaire kind of multi-millionaire league. In terms of how that can actually impact us, the great news is that because if they try to increase taxes, it also does mean that they're going to increase the funding to potentially do even more stimulus check programs. So the great news is that in terms of for us though, is that by increasing the taxes, it actually also increases the odds that we can potentially see even more stimulus checks and more other kinds of programs to potentially come, because it also just means that they have more money, so now hopefully more money to also give away on top of that. There has also been a lot of fears that if they end up doing this, it could potentially lead to a lot of massive inflation going on. So basically everything that and you might have even already, some of you guys maybe have already noticed it in, your daily life. I can certainly say here in New York City, some places I think are still safe. And I think that's the really great news. So I think this depends on your location, but you may have already also noticed that like for some people, depending on where you're located, some of the prices for the things that you're currently paying, so examples of like for food, bills, rent, electricity, basically everything that you typically buy, there is a lot of fear that if the inflation really does end up coming, that there's going to be a massive price hike for a lot of things that we typically buy on a regular basis. I can comment here in New York City, I already actually noticed this with a lot of things related to food. So things such as like restaurants, groceries, and the difficult thing is that because we actually need to eat to live, it's one of those expenses that it's very difficult to kind of just not have, because I think every single person needs to, at the end of the day, have food to kind of thrive. It's pretty much like a life necessity of some kind. There is a lot of fear right now that if they end up deciding to increase the taxes to make it higher, then by the end of this year, because if this program goes through, it's probably going to be starting next year, in order to kind of combat a lot of that, there's likely going to be a lot of very rich people, like millionaires and billionaires, that are potentially now going to sell their stock. If they sell their stock, it's going to lead to a massive sell-off, because they want to basically exit and sell their stocks before the actual taxes increase and they have to pay a lot more. And if we're talking about a 20% tax for a lot of the rich people, like if we're talking about people with like millions, and this is a realistic amount, a lot of the people that we're talking about is actually people with at least like $1 million inside. Every $1 million, that 20% increase in taxes, we're talking about $200,000. That's pretty massive. And when we're talking about like someone with like let's say a net worth like about $10 million, we're talking about $2 million. It's probably very anticipated that if they end up doing this, it's going to potentially lead to a massive sell-off, where there's a lot of rich people that are going to be trying to sell away all of the stocks that they own. And by doing that, it's going to potentially crash the stock market down even lower than well, technically it's already high, but it's going to basically crash it lower than whatever it currently stands by the time that it currently happens. Many people's retirement accounts are linked into the stock market, but the general idea is that if we are hoping to try to get some kind of stimulus program, this is going to be the source. This is going to be what's hoping to potentially fund and impact how much we can physically do when it comes to stimulus programs. But that's pretty much what I really just wanted to share in today's update. So if you guys found it insightful, maybe consider smashing the like button. Feel free to comment any questions, thoughts, and consider subscribing for similar videos like this. I'll put videos at the very end. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe, stay well. If you are watching this on release date, have a great upcoming weekend. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.